The last bell had already rung by the time she walked into the building, so she headed straight to the office. The principal, Mrs. Crabtree, was in the outer office. She frowned when Tara walked in. "You're late, Tara." "Yes, ma'am." She handed the secretary her written excuse, but Mrs. Crabtree took it instead and quickly read it. "It says here there was an emergency, but it doesn't say what kind." Tara sighed. "It was personal, Mrs. Crabtree. My uncle signed the note." The office door opened behind Tara. Mrs. Crabtree's eyes widened, and then she said, "Aha!" in such a loud voice that Tara jumped as Mrs. Crabtree pointed. "You think this flimsy excuse is going to get past me? You two are a couple, and you're both late for school. Let me see your note, young man," and snatched the note right out of Flynn's hand. Flynn looked at Tara and shrugged as he handed it over. Only Mrs. Crabtree's indignation ended as swiftly as it had come. This note is from the Stillwater Police Department." "Yes, ma'am," Flynn said. "I had to finish giving my statement this morning." Mrs. Crabtree frowned. "Statement? Were you arrested?" "No, ma'am. I was kidnapped yesterday afternoon. The police found me and rescued me in McAllister this morning, around 2 a.m. I wouldn't be here at all today except that we're having a big test in Spanish that I didn't want to make up." Mrs. Crabtree gasped. "You were kidnapped?" "Yes, ma'am. It had to do with some stuff my dad had been mixed up in. The police found me only because Tara was helping them, or I'd still be tied to a chair in that motel." Tara's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to acknowledge that, not that she needed a pat on the back or anything. Mrs. Crabtree saw the rope burns on his wrists and the dark circles under his eyes. "Are you all right? Should you be here, I mean?" "There's a police car waiting for me out in the parking lot. I need to take that test, and then they're taking me home to be with my mom. I'll be gone from school for the next 2 days for my father's funeral." "Your father died?" "Yes, ma'am." Now the principal's frown was completely gone. "I'm very sorry for your loss." "Thank you." The principal kept looking from Tara to Flynn and back again. She was about to ask another question when the door suddenly opened and then slammed shut behind them again. Only there was no one there. Tara blinked. That would be Millicent, and she was obviously ticked. She just did not like Mrs. Crabtree. Mrs. Crabtree was very familiar with the crazy stuff that happened when Tara was around. The last time she'd confronted Tara Luna, she'd gone home with a black mustache drawn on her upper lip from a runaway permanent marker. She had to bleach her skin to get it off. Her lip had peeled, and it had taken a week for the bleach smell under her nose to go away. She wanted no part of the girl or her spooks. She looked down at the notes. She'd never gotten one from the police department on a student's behalf before. "Write them a hall pass," she told the school secretary, and then bolted into her office and closed the door. Tara got her note and walked out, heading to first hour as fast as she could walk. She didn't want to talk to Flynn and then be all red-eyed and crying when she got into class. But she didn't walk fast enough, and Flynn caught up with her halfway down the hall. "Tara, wait." She pointed to the hall monitor and kept on walking. Flynn sighed. She was really mad, but so was he. His uncles down in Ardmore were already planning his dad's funeral. Flynn couldn't wrap his head around the fact he'd never talk to him again. He knew he should have told someone about Floy Nettles threatening him yesterday morning. It might have stopped Floy's brother, Sam, from kidnapping him, but it was too late to change what had happened. It was frightening to learn that someone killed Floy only hours after Floy had confronted him, and they still didn't know who had done it. He watched Tara walking away, and could tell by the stiff set of shoulders and her long, hurried stride that he'd hurt her feelings by shutting her out. He was so used to taking care of business on his own that it never occurred to him to dump his troubles on anyone. However, knowing what she could do, as she'd said, he had been something of a dumbass not to ask for help, and was man enough to admit it.